Quote, "When you smoke the herb, it reveals you to yourself," unquote, by Bob Marley. According to www.drugfree.org, with a copyright 2016, quote, "Smoking a single marijuana joint is equivalent to smoking 2.5 or 5 cigarettes in terms of damage to the lungs, largely due to the difference in how pot and cigarettes users smoke," unquote. Today we will inhale the ways that the legalization of marijuana is beneficial, then exhale the ways that smoking marijuana can be compared to smoking cigarettes. Lastly, we will roll around with how marijuana can be funded. We are going to learn ways that legalization of marijuana is beneficial, then the comparison of marijuana to cigarettes, and lastly, how marijuana is funded. At the end of this speech, I would like to persuade my audience to go towards the legalization of marijuana. Within the last month in Stanton, we've had minors that have been caught with this awful drug in their possession. So I decided that the legalization of marijuana with a prompt age restriction would be better than having no age restriction on it. According to www.alternet.org, with a copyright 2016, quote, "The most kinds of people that smoke marijuana are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and there are 100,000 people in the U.S. that have been reported by police to smoke marijuana." Also, according to patientsformedicalmarijuana.com, which is a blog for wordspress.com, quote, "Scientists have studied that it does not matter what plant you are smoking, all of them are harmful to your lungs. So would it matter whether it was marijuana you're smoking, or would it be better to press if you have different plants that you are doing the same thing as what you do with marijuana?" Everyone thinks that smoking marijuana will cause you to get cancer, more likely than tobacco. But it will not cause you to have the same types of cancers as you would if you were smoking tobacco. And if you try to eat marijuana, it'll do the same effect as if you were smoking it. So it's kind of like when you eat herbs in some foods, it's like the same concept. Like you can put it in the same things that you can, like chives or anything of that sort. And it will do the same effect as if you were smoking. And also, if you smoke weed or marijuana, you will get an overdose, which is also another factor of it. And the same thing, if you eat it, you will get an overdose. Now that we have inhaled the different ways of marijuana being beneficial, let's exhale into whether smoking marijuana is better than cigarettes. Now, first, you should probably know what the definition of marijuana, which the definition of marijuana is, quote, the dried leaves and female flowers of a hemp plant. And unquote. This is according to dictionary.com with a copyright 2016. There are ways to make sure that the legalization of marijuana would be beneficial, such as the legalization we would be able to control the spread of marijuana if we now have it legalized. Which is meaning if we legalize it, we will have more of an opportunity for the people that are influenced by it. We will have them, like police wouldn't want to go after them. They'd want to go after the people that aren't supposed to be using it, like for like different reasons, such as like the most people use it for our medical and pleasure. We would go after the people that would do it for pleasure instead of like the medical people that would be using it. Now that we have exhaled the ways that marijuana can be better than smoking a cigarette, let's get rolling into how we would fund marijuana. If we would legalize marijuana, the price would go down in all 50 states. One of the main causes of people selling marijuana is that it's expensive and you can make money off of it. And there's such a high demand in all 50 states that if we legalize it in all of them, less people would want it because there's not a bigger demand for it. But this is according to constitutioncenter.org with a copyright 2016 that states that it is illegal in all but 23 states and the Districts of Columbia. But in these 23 states and the District of Columbia, that they're only allowed to use it medically. Like, it has to be prescribed from a doctor. It can't just be like grown from someone and given. Lastly, we have inhaled the beneficial ways that marijuana can be used, then exhaled the comparison of smoking marijuana to cigarettes, and finally we needed to roll around with how marijuana is funded. I hope that now, at the end of my speech, I have persuaded you to go towards the legalization of marijuana in a medical way.
Okay, so what I took from this was that my lungs and smoking a cigarette is worse than it would be if I were to roll a joint and smoke marijuana. How can we use like taxes to tax it to make it more
To make more money for
to make more money for the government? Would that be something you see as something we could do to funding wise?
I think that would be a better idea than what people are doing now towards like figuring out how people are funding for it, because it is expensive to do it, because it is illegal right now. So people want to have it as a higher drug than what a doctor can give you, like Novocaine and like all that stuff, or all those medical things for pain relievers. They want it as a pain reliever and stress reliever.
You mentioned that the cancer, marijuana can cause different cancers compared to what cigarettes can cause. Do you know what those cancers could be? Or what types of cancers they could be?
Well, like, marijuana affects like the lungs different. Like, it is affecting your lungs, but it's affecting it in a different way to cause the different cancers, instead of having like the process is different how it affects it, but it kind of will give you the same cancer, except for it's different. Does that understand? Like, does that?
A little. So it can still cause lung cancer, just that in a different way.
It won't be as faster as it would.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, as far as using it for medical purposes, is it mainly for pain, or is there other?
It's mainly for pain and like chemo patients, instead of instead of going through chemo, you are going and having the drug.
I've heard that it helps also with nausea for the
Yes.
the cancer patients on that.
Well, thank you for listening.